A few years ago, I woke up one morning feeling extra motivated to make homemade biscuits. To my dismay, one of my pans cooked hotter than the others, and I ended up burning the bottoms of some of them. Man, I thought to myself, do I throw those out? It was just the bottom sliver of the biscuit that was burnt. The rest of it was completely fine and delicious. Not to be completely defeated in the world of culinary arts, I haphazardly and unashamedly tossed them into the breadbasket with the perfectly cooked ones. I declared to my husband that we would just eat around the bad parts. My then 2-year-old daughter saw one of the burnt biscuits and immediately claimed that as her prize. I want that one. We asked her if she was sure, and she assured us that this was the one for her. She looked at that burnt biscuit with wide eyes and gave the overly toasted bottom a good lick. Her eyes got wider, and she exclaimed, "That's not chocolate?" Like my 2-year-old with the burnt biscuit, I too have felt life not meet my expectations. There have been plenty of times when I thought, this was not what I expected. When we got pregnant with our first, like every other woman who has ever gotten pregnant, I developed my own expectations there as well. To my surprise, I was fairly symptom-free for most of my first trimester. But then, in a strange turn of events, I became horribly ill with all-day sickness when I reached 11 weeks. Over the next 15 weeks, I vomited nearly every day, I lost 15 pounds, and I had to take medicine to keep anything down. This was not what I expected. But as I approached my 3rd trimester, I started feeling better. I might even recall feeling fabulous a time or two. My swollen belly announced to all who met me that we were blessed with new life. This was pregnancy at its finest. Instead, I would soon realize that I had been figuratively handed a burnt biscuit. 11 weeks before my due date, I thought I was experiencing weird muscle spasms in my belly. My doctor thought it wasn't a big deal, but suggested I get checked at the hospital. I thought I was going to be wasting their time and that I'd just be sent home. Whoa, am I glad that I went in. 3 centimeters, the nurse determined with a serious tone. I was in preterm labor, and I wasn't going anywhere. This was not what I expected. While I was deeply concerned for the safety of my baby, this was also 2 days before my baby shower. It was too late to cancel the event, so while I stayed in the hospital, my baby shower took place without me. I attended via cell phone with no public glow and no fabulous cake. It seems so trivial now, but this was not what I expected. The doctors stalled my labor, but I stayed in the hospital for the next 3 weeks. I was eventually allowed to go home, but because I was 4.5 centimeters at that point, I was kept on a very strict bed rest until I delivered. While we had our ups and downs in the hospital, the doctors remained confident that I could have a full-term baby. After 3 rocky weeks at home, my contractions went out of control the day of my weekly appointment. My doctors checked me. Honey, you are 6 centimeters and 35 weeks. You are having a baby today, she said as she gave me instructions to go straight to the hospital. This was not what I expected. As I labored, the nurse told me that 35-weekers generally avoided the neonatal intensive care unit. Unfortunately, not long after my daughter was born, she was sent to the NICU for issues with breathing. I was discharged 2 days later, but she remained hooked to monitors and alarms. No one can prepare you for the feeling you get when you have to leave the hospital while your baby fights for her ability to breathe. This was not what I expected. As we endured the 8 days she stayed in the NICU, I would dream about the joy I would feel once we could finally be home as a family. I expected life to be full of rainbows and butterflies, with a few dirty diapers. Instead, once she came home, though perfectly healthy, life was hard. It was really hard. In fact, I hated it. I found myself resenting my baby. I couldn't even smile at her. I understood why moms on the news hurt their babies, and I was so ashamed. This was not what I expected. I did not think that I would ever like this life I had chosen, this life of motherhood. My pregnancy, while it was difficult, could not compare to the burden I felt of being a mother. When my daughter turned 2, or when she turned 2 months old, I sought help. The same doctors that saved my pregnancy were now fighting to save my sanity. They diagnosed me with severe postpartum depression and anxiety. What felt like pure torture between my sickness during pregnancy, my preterm labor, and my postpartum issues, I thought I could never enjoy life again. And this was not what I expected. But then the smoke began to clear. I started to enjoy motherhood. Over time, I began to thrive in this role. I found myself loving motherhood so much that I risked going through this all over again with the birth of our son 2 years later. Are they worth it? Absolutely. And while I have moments of temporary insanity, what mom doesn't, we spend most of our time laughing and truly enjoying each other. I sincerely hope that God blesses us with more children. And this was not what I expected. We go through seasons in life. Some of them resemble the bottoms of my burnt biscuits. But if we can get through the rough part, we realize that what follows can be simply amazing.